Hello, my name is Corinthia. I go by a she, her. I'm a Virgo, and I wanted to discuss with you all a question. If you wanted to change something within your school's curriculum or policies, what subject would you pick and why? While you think of your answer, I'm going to give you mine. I would have chosen for my school, particularly high school, to have had their sexual health education policies be updated. Mostly because I am a queer woman, and when you are queer, you have to learn about sex education when you're older. And I definitely think that I would have appreciated some knowledge on various different things in high school when I was starting to carve out my identity and discovering different facets about myself. And so I am actually a project lead coordinator for the Frontex Community Project, which is a program in El Paso that pays young folks, high school students, to attend workshops, classes, learn about different sexual health education topics like menstruation, queer sex. We are also talking about anatomy, STIs, healthy relationships, boundaries, mental health, and various other sexual health realm topics through a reproductive justice lens. And so, with that being said, I wanted to discuss a little bit about our second cohort's project. It taught me a lot, and I think that for young people who want to get involved with implementing different changes within their school, it's important to know some things like the power dynamics, who holds power in your schools, and various things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next segment that I have here, which is getting to know some key players. So I'm going to talk about student health advisory councils, the board of trustees, talking about also who has the most power and influence within your school districts, and then a little bit about the project that our second cohort took on. So, who is the Student Health Advisory Council? Do you know who they are? If not, that's totally fine. I didn't know who they were either until I got involved in some work. And so they are a committee who is appointed by the school district to serve in being decision makers for anything health related within school districts. And SHACs, or School Health Advisory Councils, are made up of teachers, students, staff, community members, stakeholders, parents, students, don't know if I named them already, but anybody within the community that houses or was within the school district. And so they get together and they talk about various topics. Now, I actually got to attend a couple of these meetings, and there's actually other youth advocates out there advocating for doing presentations in schools around environmentalism. I got to present on our student organization, the Frontex Community Project. There was teachers giving updates, parents asking questions. It's all really insightful in how these group of people are able to then push forward different potential feedback to the Board of Trustees, who is the final signature mark on passing any type of policy that you want to get through to your school district. So SHACs play an important role in strengthening the connections between health and learning. They can help parents and community stakeholders reinforce the knowledge and skills people need to stay healthy for a lifelong lifetime. So that is a little bit about your SHAC. or student health advisory councils. Now, meetings can occur any time of the day. There's some in the morning, there's some in the afternoon, which can become a little bit inaccessible to students because if there is a meeting going on in the morning, you're most likely in class. So one thing to note is that you can find information on your Student Health Advisory Council online in your school's website. They should have minutes, aka meeting notes. And you can look over those and kind of see the vibe of what these meetings are like. And if they have any afternoon ones, you can attend. You can also ask your teachers if you could possibly be excused to attend one of these meetings. In my experience, SHAC meetings want youth input. They welcome youth input. So it might be something that you talk to your administrators about and or possibly your teachers, and just letting them know that you want to attend these meetings, and maybe have a note be written or signatures from SHAC members for your excuse to be excused. But that is something to note. Now you can find information, like I said, in your school's website, or you can type in SHAC and your school district in Google and they should pop up. So for the next part, I want to talk a little bit about the Board of Trustees. Now, the Board of Trustees is the district's elected leaders, and they represent the community's expectations, and they chart the direction on educational programs, services, and establish the standard by which success is measured. They are responsible for adopting goals, priorities, monitor success of school districts, adopting policies, reviewing them for effectiveness, hiring, evaluating, and hiring the superintendent, adopting a budget, reviewing tax rates and information, and they communicate to the community about any updates within the school district. They do all of this with the guidance of the Student Health Advisory Council, which is why they are the two big players that we will be highlighting in today's video, specifically for anything tied to sexual health education policies being updated within your school district. The Board of Trustees are also chosen by the public and or nominated. You can run for Board of Trustees. There is a couple of qualifications that you need to have, which let me get that real quick. Alrighty, so if you want to be a part of the Board of Trustees, you need to be a U.S. citizen, be 18 years or older, have no convictions and or felonies, be able to have reside in the state that you are wanting to run for Board of Trustees for at least 12 months, be registered to vote in the district that you are wanting to be in the Board of Trustees district, and you must satisfy any other eligibility requirements prescribed by the law of the office, for the office. My gosh. So if school districts have any other things that they want to add towards requirements, they can add those. But as far as the most part, those are the 6 things that you need to keep in mind if you want to get into the Board of Trustees office. Yes. There is something to note here. You can either be president, vice president, secretary, or just a member of the board. The term for being in the Board of Trustees is 4 years, and there can only be 7 members on the board. So, why is this all important? Well, it is very important when we talk about power dynamics in the school district. Now, I would like to ask you this. Within the realm of your school, who do you think has the most power? Let's take a second to think about it. Well, let's go over it, shall we? Here we have a power pyramid. At the bottom, we have people who are good allies but may not have the most power when trying to go about enacting new policies within school districts. At the top of the pyramid, we have people with the most power and influence to be able to adopt different policies to your school district. All right, so our contestants are teachers, counselors, nurses, principals, vice principal, parents, students, superintendent, board of trustees, and shacks. So, who is going to be at the bottom of this power pyramid, do you think? I don't know what you said, but if you didn't say counselors, you're wrong. So at the very bottom, the cohort that we were working on a project on said that the counselors are going to be at the bottom. Now, I would say that counselors are more of a resource center. If you are in need of any type of aid or any type of help, counselors are a good person to go to try to get those resources. They're going to be at the bottom of this power pyramid when trying to enact different policy updates and or just different policies being adopted into your district. So next we have teachers. Teachers are a good ally to have when trying to adopt different sexual health education policies. Specifically also, you do want to get the support of whoever is going to be teaching the material, whether that be your coach, a health teacher, your science teacher, I don't know. But whoever it is that is teaching the subject, it is really, really good to try to get them to be an ally and have these conversations, because ultimately the curriculum that will be taught, if you are to adopt a new one, will be taught by them. Next, we have vice principal and principal. So here we are starting to see maybe what people may imagine are people who are in most power within the schools, but actually what the students for this cohort have noted is that above principal and vice principal is going to be students and parents. Students and parents are in the middle of this power pyramid because without students and parents, there is no school and no community for that matter. And so it's important to note here that parents and students are going to be the people that you want to show up for you starting to want to adopt new policies into your school district. If you can get parents along, if you can get your student body along, then it's going to be easier to try to push some of these changes for sexual health education much faster and much easier, in my opinion. Next, we have nurses. Now, you might not think that nurses pull a lot of weight, but if you think about it, nurses do have a certain level of prestige. There is a certain level of trust there. And when you're talking about sexual health education, you definitely want to be able to get the nurse on your side. They have that prestige, they have the education, and if you can get them to come on board with you, you have a great ally towards going towards getting the top 3 people within the pyramid to pass the policies that you want to enact. Now, a cool fun fact about school nurses is that school nurses can actually have bowls of condoms in their office. The only thing is they cannot hand it to you, they cannot recommend that you get one, but they can certainly have bowls of condoms in their office and you can go and get one. Now, do a lot of nurses in Texas do this? No, unfortunately not, but it can be done. Next, we have the big 3. Now, 2 you might have guessed, which is the Board of Trustees and the SHAC, because we just went over them. The other one is going to be the Superintendent, who is kind of like the middleman to them. So here we have SHAC, we have Superintendent, and then we have the Board of Trustees. So the SHAC, we already talked about why they are important. They are going to be the people who review, look over any policy updates, are in charge of health for the school districts, and they're going to kind of be the first people that we meet along this journey to try to update some of these sex ed policies. Then we have the superintendent, who is appointed by the Board of Trustees, and they are going to be seeing those policies. They will then refer to the Board of Trustees. Now, you can go straight to the Board of Trustees, but you want to make sure that if you do that, you have a powerhouse of support backing you up, and try to get as many allies in these levels of the power pyramid as much as possible. So on top we have the Board of Trustees, and our students actually had a really interesting conversation around this on who has the most power, students and parents or the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is definitely taken on and hired on by the community, and the Board of Trustees is actually the people who, again, sign off on creating any policies. So it was a really interesting conversation. I'm really curious to see if you agree with our students or not. Do you think that any of these need to be placed higher or lower? Whatever have you, the Board of Trustees is definitely on top because they're going to be the ones to sign off on things. Now, a little bit of myth or fact with you all. So I'm going to play a game and ask you some questions on what you think school districts can talk about and cannot talk about when related to school sexual health education. So, Texas laws prohibit teaching about condoms and contraceptions in high school. Myth or fact? Please lock in your answer now. Did you say myth? This is a myth. So the Texas Code 28.004 states that if schools choose to teach about condoms and contraceptions, they have to do so in terms of typical use rates and not laboratory rates. And the wording that is important there is that if schools choose, so your school's policies have to reflect that they are able to talk about these subject matters, but they totally can. So next. All sexual health education programs are equally effective. Myth or fact? Is your answer myth? So all sexual health education programs are not created equal. So here we have Abstinence, here we have Comprehensive Plus, here we have Abstinence Plus, and all of these programs are definitely not on equal footing ground. One just teaches you about abstinence, one teaches you about abstinence, and a little bit more condoms, contraceptions. Comprehensive teaches you about all kinds of things, whether that be relationships, menstruation, and so much more. I think more complicated issue that we went into is if you want to include queer sex education as well, as there are many, many laws and policies enacted that prohibit that. But you can still talk about contraceptions, healthy relationships, and so much more in comprehensive sex education than the other ones. Comprehensive sexual health education does not address or promote abstinence. Myth or fact? Did you say fact? Because that's wrong. It's a myth. So there is, like I said, abstinence, abstinence plus, and then comprehensive sexual health education. And I think that the term comprehensive sexual health education, because there is no abstinence somewhere in there and it's comprehensive, it's all inclusive, makes people think that abstinence is not promoted within this curriculum, but it is. So that is the game. Your prize, knowledge. You're welcome. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the project that the student cohort 2 worked on for the Frontex community project. And so linked down below is actually a petition that they worked on, as well as policy that they worked on. Now, we collectively all came together and got feedback from our first cohort, from our second cohort. They striked through what they didn't like. They highlighted things that they did like, and we were able to get policy with student youth input and petition for that to be passed through. Unfortunately, COVID did affect our plans for all of that, and SHAC meetings are so focused on getting policies and guides on the classroom for COVID protocols, so we weren't able to do SHAC meetings, but we did host town halls where students went over a presentation and they talked about different information that they learned, and the importance of updating policies for schools. And so linked down below is our students' policy and as well as their petition. So if you want to sign, please sign it. And or if you want an idea for what editing a policy looks like, you can also take a look at that. So that is it for this video. That is it for this project. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I will also have my email down below on how we went about doing all of these things. We also did reach out to the State Board of Trustees, but that is a whole other conversation. And these are some of the things that you can do to try to get some updated policies, conversations, getting started in your school. I know that some school districts give out pamphlets, give out books on sex education, but that just frankly is not enough. We want to have specific dedicated time to this. We want to be able to have a judgment-free zone, encourage positivity in having these conversations that are very, very fruitful and wanted, and also encourage parental involvement. So thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you got something out of it, even if it's only discovering the power dynamics of your school. Who has the power? You have the power. Anyways, have a good one.